Well, I hate when this happens. Okay, I couldn't see myself. Now I have to scroll all the way down. We already talked about that. Okay, here we go. All right, topic 11 is on forced and voluntary migration. So, topic 10, we discussed the reasons people leave a place or the reasons people go to a place, and what might prevent them from doing that or accomplishing it as easy as they would like. Today, we are going to talk about forced and voluntary migration. So, your objective is to describe types of forced and voluntary migration. Easy enough. Forced migrations include slavery and events that produce refugees, internally displaced persons, and asylum seekers. So these people don't necessarily choose to migrate, they just really have no other choice other than to move somewhere else. Forced migration is the involuntary movement of people as the result of force or another imminent threat. Um, One example of forced migration is slavery. So, the Atlantic slave trade was the largest forced migration in history. And I'm giving you a reference at the bottom so you can kind of see where these slaves were forced to migrate to. Most African slaves were forced to go to South America. The next largest group you can see went to these islands in the Bahamas. A small group came to the mainland of the United States, some to Mexico, and then some over to Asia. But most did go to South America or to the Bahamas. Um, Forced migration and forced labor still exists today, not necessarily in the way we would think of like um, colonial slavery or antebellum slavery, but unfortunately, it takes forms like sex slavery. And there are 5 times more forced laborers today, 5 times more slaves today in that sense than there were the number of African Americans enslaved in the U.S. in 1860. So it's forced labor is still happening today, and it's a very big issue around the world. So this type of forced migration is a result of like a force, like someone is taking them and making them move. Another type of forced migration still isn't voluntary, but is because there's a severe threat, and if that threat wasn't there, these people wouldn't leave. So this takes the place. This takes the form, sorry, or takes the shape of displaced persons, refugees, and asylum seekers. So these type of people result from political and environmental crises, and most plan to return home after the threat passes. So internally displaced persons are migrants that move to another part of the same country. So we honestly see this a lot when you have um, evacuees leaving because of a hurricane or something like that. They're internally displaced, meaning they had to leave their home, but they just went to another part of the country. Refugees are migrants that cross international borders with a well founded fear that they will be harmed if they return home. So, refugees generally don't seek like approval to go where they're trying to go. It's like their reason for leaving was too urgent, they couldn't wait. So, they cross international borders because they fear for their life if they return back home. You see a lot of this when a country is going through a war, a civil war, things like that, because the people are scared that as civilians, if they stay there, they're going to die as a result of the violence. Refugees and asylum seekers are pretty similar, but asylum seekers are migrants that apply for protection in their destination state. So they kind of apply to go there before they leave. So those threats usually aren't super imminent, but they still feel a threat in their home country and they would like to seek asylum somewhere else. But after that threat leaves, they still plan to return home. So those are the three types of people that result from forced migration because of a certain threat. So types of voluntary migration include transnational, transhumanists, internal, chain, step, guest worker, and rural to urban. And we're going to go over each one of those. So voluntary migration, basically what it says, you chose to get up and leave from somewhere for whatever reason. So transnational migration, migration between two different countries or states that we say in AP Human Geography. In order for it to be transnational migration, you have to cross an international border. You have to move into another country. Transhumanists is a seasonal migration done by livestock herders. So this isn't really done in the United States, but in other parts of the world, livestock herders would migrate to the highlands during the hot summer and then come to the lowland pastures during winter to avoid the freeze and snow. Chain migration is migration to a location where relatives or friends migrated to previously. So what happens is a friend or family member moves to a certain place, and then they communicate back to their home country about how many opportunities there are and all the stuff that they're getting to do and how great it is. And so their friend or family member that are still in the home country follow them to wherever they migrated to. So it's migration kind of by word of mouth. And it happens because someone had done it before you and told you how great it was. Step migration, we've mentioned a little bit in topic 10. It's a process in which migrants reach their eventual destination through a series of smaller moves. So you move to a location where they can rebuild up resources like money and then move again to the next step. We talked about that a little bit, especially when people are moving like across the world. Oftentimes they just don't have the money or resources to make that trip. Because if you think about it, when you get somewhere, especially people moving to developed countries like places in Europe and the United States and Canada, when you get there, you then have to have money to live. And so a lot of migrants will use all of their money to travel. And so they have to stop and make a home for maybe a few months to a year to earn more money so they can move to the next place, travel there, use their money to travel there, gain some more money. And then when they get to their destination, they have a little bit of money that they can actually start their life with. More voluntary migration, guest workers. So a guest worker is a migrant who comes to a state as a temporary worker because they got a visa or something like that. But what happens is they send what's called remittances back home, which is money sent back to their family in the country that they left. So they're like working and gaining money, and then they're sending money to their family to support them, oftentimes in hopes that maybe their family can join them one day if they have the money to move there. Down here, I have put a map of, if this thing would get out of the way, of money going in and out of countries. You can see where a majority of the money is leaving. So that means people are going to like North America, so the US and Canada, down at the south of South America, Eastern Europe. People are working there, moving there to work, and then sending money to the green countries. Other types of voluntary migration, rural to urban, people moving from small village and farming communities to large urban areas. We've talked about that in Rabenstein's laws. There's more migration from rural areas to urban areas because they're seeking opportunities that don't exist in their rural areas. So that was topic 11. Go ahead and write your summary and move on to topic